Guns are a tool, but they're only as safe as the person using them. This series is designed to make you a safe and capable shooter. You're going to learn all about firearm types. You're going to learn how to be effective at the range. You're going to learn how to find your own place to shoot, but mostly you're going to have fun. So come along. It's going to be a blast. Our next job is we're going to sight in a rifle. Now there's a couple of ways to do it. We've got two different kinds of rifles here. The one that's on the rest right now is really your typical setup. This is magnified rifle scope on top of a bolt action rifle. You want to make sure that your sight is matching where your gun is shooting. Here's an important thing to remember. Your gun basically shoots in the same place every time, but there's two variables that can affect the accuracy of everything else. One is how your sight is aligned with your gun, and the second one is the motions and the trembles that your own body imparts to your gun. So both of those can degrade accuracy. But the very first thing we're going to do is make sure that the gun and the sight are looking at the same place downrange. The main way to do that, especially with the bolt action rifle, is to take the bolt out of the gun. What you want to do is something called bore sighting. Now you've got nothing in the bore or the barrel of the rifle that is I'm moving the gun so that I can see my target right down the middle bore of that barrel. So now I know that the rifle is aligned with the target. Now I need to make sure that the scope is aligned with the rifle. I just want to look through my scope, and sure enough, it appears that my scope is not quite in line with the bore or the barrel of my rifle. Scopes are designed to be adjustable on two different planes, the up and down axis and the left and right. It's done with these turrets. This particular scope has capped turrets, so I'm taking off the caps right here. When you do that, it exposes the actual working mechanism of a turret. And basically, they're just little clicking knobs. Each click is designed to move the center crosshair of the scope a certain amount of distance depending on the range that you're talking about. So I'm going to move this when it needs to go down about 3 clicks, and it needs to go right about 8 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That should put me pretty close to alignment of my scope with my gun. So this is called an open sight rifle. Again, we've got a bolt action here. The action is open. So this doesn't have the scope on top. Instead, the way you aim this is through these 2 pieces of metal on top of the barrel. This is called a Buckhorn sight or a notch and leaf sight. You can see the back has got a piece of metal with a little notch in it, and then the front is a post. What that looks like, if this is the post and this is the notch, you align those 2 reference points with your target downrange. Since you can't move your target downrange and this post in front is fixed, the only movable part of this system is this back sight. So just like we did with the rifle scope, you could move this up and down or left and right as needed. Remember, I talked about the 2 variables that can affect accuracy. The first one is if your scope is not aligned with your rifle, but we've taken care of that. The second one is minimizing any movement that you bring to your gun itself. So there's a couple ways to avoid that. The first is having a rock solid rest, as we do here. So that gun's not going to move at all until we get behind it. When we get behind it, we want to make sure that we don't add any movement because it's an uncomfortable fit. So in this case, my cheek nicely fits the stock. My finger easily reaches the trigger. Now remember, we don't want to put our finger on the trigger or pull it until we're ready to shoot, which we're not quite there yet. But everything seems to be aligned. I can see the target nicely through the scope. Everything's nice and clear. I think we're ready to shoot. Now, we're going to load a shell into the chamber. We're going to get on the stock, being very careful that we don't move the gun too much. And in order to not move the gun as we pull the trigger, we want to work on our breathing. So we'll take a full breath in, gently let it out. This steadies your nerves and your heart. Take another breath and let about half of it out while you gently squeeze the trigger. There's a really important consideration anytime you shoot at targets, and that is don't ever trust your first shot. You might have pulled it, it might be erratic in some way. So I always take at least 3 shots to confirm where my gun is shooting. So that was shot 1, and it looks to be I'm shooting about 1.5 inches to the right. But let's confirm it with a second shot. Gently squeeze the trigger. Okay, we've moved the shot string a little bit closer to the bullseye. We might want to move it a little bit more, but let's go pull the target and take a look. So here we have the results of our sight-in experiment. We had the first 3 shots. They were a little to the right of the bullseye. We made the turret adjustment and we nudged that shot string toward the bullseye. We made that final adjustment and got it a little bit closer. Once you get your rifle sighted in and you're consistently putting those shots in the bullseyes at close distances, you're ready to start marching out your distances. And really, the sky's the limit. You can go as far as 1,000 yards to even a mile for some of the long-range shooters, but long-distance shooting all starts with this: sighting in your rifle, making sure you've got consistent accuracy at close distances first. Remember, firearms are only as safe as the person using them. So whether you become a hunter, a competitive shooter, or you just go to the target range every now and then with your family, shooting is a blast.